4 Apache women made an amazing proposal. The Vaquero's response was unexpectedly transformative. Kaela felt the air heavy with judgment as she stepped into the dimly lit ranch meeting room. A mix of hope and anxiety twisted within her gut, igniting a sense of urgency to fight for their dream, yet she was acutely aware of the mountain they faced. Outside, the vast Arizona landscape echoed the stagnation she feared. Would they be able to convince Miguel, the Vaquero, that their vision for sustainable farming could coexist with his cherished cowboy traditions? Doubt crept in, wrapping around her heart like a vine, squeezing tightly. "Are we really prepared to face him?" she whispered to herself, recalling the stories of her ancestors, those resilient women who had walked this land. They had endured, yet this was not merely survival. It was about revitalization, a delicate balance of tradition and progress. But fear gnawed at her. What if she couldn't articulate their aspirations clearly enough? What if he dismissed them outright? The other 3 women stood beside her, their confident stances a reminder of their shared purpose. Tia adjusted her grip on the proposal paper, her hands trembling, a sign of her own anxiety surfacing beneath her determined exterior. Lila's eyes flashed with fierce resolve, brimming with the knowledge that their idea could heal both the land and the souls attached to it. Each glance exchanged among them charged the air with an unspoken worry. Before they could present, Miguel's brows knitted, his expression a storied map of disbelief, the rugged weariness of a man carrying generations of labor and loyalty. When they laid out their proposal, the initial silence was deafening. Kaela felt her throat tighten as he scoffed, the air in the room thickening with tension. "You think these lands can be healed by some modern tricks?" His voice was like gravel, each word a stone thrown at their dreams. The rejection stung. Kaela's mind raced, thoughts colliding in a frantic haze. Her heart felt like it was lodged in her throat. This wasn't just a proposition about farming. It was about respect, legacy, and the very foundation from which they each had sprung. How could she make him see that embracing sustainable methods didn't diminish his lineage, but rather celebrated it? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she glanced back at Miguel, she noticed a flicker of internal struggle, an uphill battle raging behind his hardened facade. How did she breach that wall? Could she convince him that the land had been bruised enough, and it was time to repair it without trampling on their histories? Holding all of her ancestors' dreams within her, Kaela confronted the desperation within herself. Each of his dismissive looks punctured her resolve, and as doubt wormed through her, sunlight from a nearby window flickered against shadows cast by memories of her grandmother's strength. There was a deep ache of anguish. Could change really come without losing the essence of everything they held dear? As the gathered air thickened with palpable tension, Miguel's eyes softened slightly, while Lila spoke passionately about biodiversity and community forestry. Would it be enough? A sense of urgency clawed at Kaela's insides. Miguel teetered on the brink, a lone figure standing between dust and the promise of renewal. As the shadows deepened, she wondered if their dreams would remain in the realm of fantasy or take root in reality. The night encroached, and uncertainty clung to them like thorns, ensnared in the fragile threads of hope woven through their proposal, and the chance at transformation lay just out of grasp. Kaela felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her like the thick, oppressive air before a storm. Here she was, an embodiment of hope, standing at the precipice of change, yet tethered by fear. Miguel remained silent, his expression unreadable, forcing her thoughts into an overwhelming spiral. How could she turn this around? Doubt whispered relentlessly in her mind, echoing the voices of history that warned her of failure. Yet, in this crucible of emotion, she recognized something stirring within her, a hint of defiance, a call to rise above. "Let's not give up," Tia said suddenly, her voice breaking the tension. "We have to show him what this means, not just for us, but for the land." Her resolve kindled an ember of determination in Kaela's heart. Suddenly, they weren't just presenting the proposal. They were embarking on a mission to reclaim their heritage and elevate it. This realization ignited a fire in Kaela's belly. Its warmth fought against the chill of uncertainty lingering in the room. Kaela took a deep breath, clutching the proposal tightly in her hands. "Miguel," she ventured, her voice steadier than she felt, "this isn't merely about modern techniques. It's about honoring the ways of our ancestors while restoring the earth." Each word came with intention, building a bridge she hoped would connect their worlds. As she spoke, Kaela became aware of Miguel's guarded stance shifting slightly, his brow knitted tighter, betraying his inner conflict. Was there still a chance to make him see beyond his skepticism? "When we farm sustainably, we strengthen the land, allowing it to flourish. We honor your traditions by ensuring they endure for generations to come," she pressed further. Tia and Lila joined her, offering their perspectives, stitching together an intricate narrative of past and future, of respect and innovation. Neurosis ebbed as they turned Miguel's hardened gaze from a barrier into a mirror that reflected their passion. But there was still that creeping fear deep inside Kaela's gut, whispering doubts that threatened to drown their voices. Then unexpectedly, Miguel spoke. "You believe this land is broken?" His voice held an edge, pinning Kaela's heart to the floor. "You want to heal it while claiming it can't heal itself?" The question hung in the air, agonizing and raw. For a moment, uncertainty washed over her like a wave, yet there was clarity, the lesson from her ancestors. They fought not just against despair, but for a future they envisioned, pushing past the shadows of doubt. "No, Miguel," she stated, infused with newfound conviction. "We believe it can be reborn if we're willing to nurture it together. We carry the same blood, the same land. It is time for us to work with it, not against it." The intensity in the room shifted. A palpable tension thickened, yet turned hopeful. It was raw and vulnerable, shared among those unwilling to yield to fear. Kaela could see it in Miguel, the flicker of possibility shining through the cracks of his entrenched perspective, a human connection igniting against the backdrop of endless generations. But just as hope began to take root, another voice interrupted their fragile moment. "Miguel!" A gravelly shout came from the doorway, tuning the atmosphere into an electric thrumming of disbelief. "Don't listen to those myths of restoration." The newcomer stepped into the room, a tall figure whose mere presence sent a wave of unrest before him. Kaela's heart sank. This confrontation was far from over. As she stood there, feeling emboldened yet uncertain, the looming figure posed a threat to everything they had just begun to plant. The only thing she knew for certain was this was just the beginning of a battle, not just for their vision, but for their very identities. Would they be able to stand tall against the oncoming storm? Kaela felt the surge of determination rise within her once again, the battle ahead daunting, but one she would fight valiantly. As tensions flared, she wondered what this new challenge would reveal about their intentions, their fortitude, and perhaps even their destinies. Kaela's heart raced as she took stock of the tall figure standing at the doorway. The imposing silhouette of Valerio, Miguel's uncle, loomed large, his stern expression a storm cloud overhead. It was clear the atmosphere had thickened with his arrival, hinting at the long-standing rifts their families bore. As the server of tradition, Valerio embodied the very resistance Kaela had feared, but knew she would face. "Miguel, have you lost your way?" Valerio barked, his voice a low rumble slicing through the tension. "These women don't understand our land. They want to change what has been passed down for generations." His gaze rested on Kaela and her friends, dismissively assessing their resolve. The words stung, but they stoked the fire within her. Kaela searched Valerio's eyes for clarity, hoping to establish a connection, however distant. "We want to partner with the land," she attempted to clarify, though uncertainty crackled in the air like static electricity. "We respect its history. Farming sustainably isn't a choice. It's an obligation to nurture future generations." "Obligation!" he scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "You think that reading a few books on agriculture makes you experts? You don't even know the land's pulse or the stories it holds." Valerio's challenge hit home, jolting Kaela to confront her insecurities. Did she truly grasp the land's essence, or was she merely an idealist calling for change? Yet his skepticism ignited something visceral, a question spiraling in her mind. how well did she know herself? Over the years she had lived amongst the echoes of her ancestors' tales, the whispers of the earth. While Valerio saw her as an outsider, perhaps he didn't understand the commitment she'd cultivated through her upbringing, resilience entwined with knowledge. "Experience can be taught, Valerio," she countered, her voice steadying. "What I lack in years, I make up for in passion. My family cultivated this soil, and I carry their wisdom." With each word, Kaela broke the barriers between them, weaving her understanding into Valerio's granite-like skepticism. Tia's subtle nod of encouragement fueled Kaela's courage. "You claim the land has traditions, and that may be true," she said. "But those traditions have often led to its waning health. We're not here to cast aside your ways, but to ensure they evolve. Change can be an ally, not an adversary." Valerio's expression shifted imperceptibly. For a moment, a flicker of curiosity crossed his face. Perhaps he was questioning, but the storm of doubt was clearly still swirling in him. The possibility that Kaela could provoke thought filled her with a mix of anxiety and hope. Would he relent in the presence of their arguments, or harden further against them? "You think the years of struggle and sacrifice mean nothing?" he challenged, planting his feet firmly. "Farming is not merely a science, it's a heritage, and heritage does not bend easily to the whims of innovation." That resonated in Kaela. "This isn't about whim, it's about survival," she insisted, her heart quickening as she felt the stakes escalate. "For all of us." The words felt monumental, a collective plea wrapped in her determination, a voice that sought validation not just for her work, but for the legacy they were all tied to. A long silence ensued, thick with conflicting emotions. Kaela felt the magnitude of the moment wash over her. Everything hinged on how Miguel would respond, yet the friction between Valerio and herself felt increasingly personal. Just as Kaela placed her bets on the emerging dialogue, Valerio turned to Miguel, eyes blazing with expectation. "What will you choose, nephew? Will you let the ancients down?" With the weight of future generations hanging in the balance, Kaela braced herself for Miguel's answer. She could sense the precipice of a decision approaching, a moment that could either forge a new alliance or deepen the divide. Would Miguel uphold the call to their roots, or would he yield to the conventional ties of familial loyalty? As the silence stretched, the tension cracked like thunder, and Kaela feared what his response might unveil. The clash between tradition and evolution loomed, but in that very clash, she felt an unmistakable promise of potential change. What would Miguel choose to embody in this coming storm of scrutiny? Kaela's breath caught in her throat as she steadied herself, anticipating Miguel's reply. Each tick of the clock echoed like drumbeats, amplifying her uncertainty and hope, a precarious balance that could tip in any direction. The room felt constricting, filled with the weight of possibilities and the dizzying potential for both triumph and defeat. "Uncle," Miguel finally spoke, his voice piercing through her collection of racing thoughts. "This is not just about our traditions." He paused, searching for the right words as Valerio's icy demeanor remained unchanged. "There's truth in what Kaela and her team are saying. We need to adapt to survive." Kaela's heart surged with a rush of adrenaline, but Valerio's eyes widened with incredulity. "So you would turn your back on our lineage? Are you so easily swayed by these outsiders?" The challenge in Valerio's tone threw Miguel into a whirlwind of internal conflict. Kaela sensed the invisible threads of loyalty tugging at him, binding him to ancestral ways while exposing his desire for progress. Miguel took a deep breath, resting free from familial expectations. "I'm not rejecting our heritage, Uncle, but aiming to preserve it by making it stronger. Imagine intertwining our stories with new practices that not only honor the past, but also rejuvenate the land." Despite her surroundings, Kaela felt a flicker of possibility igniting within her, yet it was dimmed by the apprehension of what Valerio might say. Would he accept this plea for transformation? Or would he tear apart the fragile bond Miguel was trying to forge? "Hope is a cruel master if you let it guide you blindly," Valerio said, his voice thick with distrust. "You think you can remedy what generations have carefully maintained, but all I see is a threat to our existence. The new ways may lead to ruin." Kaela's nervousness surged again, threatening to choke her words, but she pushed through, desperate to defend their vision. "We can't stand still, Valerio. Our land is suffering, and ignoring that is abandoning it. Ignoring the health of the soil, the plant life, it's not just tradition, it's negligence. Silence hung heavy in the air, wrapped in tension as her resolve danced with doubt. While Kaela's challenge echoed throughout the room, she understood that confronting Valerio was not merely a duel over farming practices. It was a battle over identities and legacies. The stakes felt deeply personal, a reflection of her own ambitions pressed against the hard surface of tradition. "I won't surrender to the unfamiliar," Valerio retorted, eyes narrowing dangerously. "You cannot have your intuition replace my blood. Our means have sustained us through every storm, every drought. Your naivety will cast us all adrift." Miguel spoke again, his hesitation fading, transformed into something fiercer. "That's where you're wrong. We can sail together. Tradition can meet innovation." As Kaela listened, urgency clinging to her, a revelation unfurled within her mind. This was more than advocating for sustainable farming. It was a test of identity itself. Her understanding of this deep-rooted conflict turned palpable, and instead of merely echoing the voices of tradition, she needed to share her own doubt, to invite Miguel into a deeper discourse of their beliefs. "Valerio," she interjected suddenly, her voice unexpected in its steadiness. "Tradition kept us grounded, but it doesn't absolve us from responsibility. What if we immerse ourselves in this challenge? What if we become stewards, not bound by the past, but empowered by its lessons?" Her words lingered like an open door, waiting for someone to step through. For the first time, Valerio's brow furrowed, revealing a flicker of consideration beneath the layers of stubbornness. She was not only reaching for Miguel's understanding, she aimed to bridge the widening chasm between generations. Sensing the shift, Valerio's stance softened imperceptibly, but he remained unmoved. "A gamble," he muttered, betraying a sliver of uncertainty as he regarded Miguel. "If you choose this path, there are grave risks at play." Kaela knew this was a defining moment. The clash of ideologies intertwined ignited something formidable within her, a momentum she had prepared for her entire life. This was not just about the land. It was about proving her own worth, fighting to define the path she aspired to walk. With bated breath, she locked eyes with Miguel, urging him to summon his courage. "It's worth the risk, Miguel. Transforming our approach is essential for survival. The journey may be tumultuous, but history has taught us that the strongest roots often grow from the most turbulent soil." As the weight of her words lingered in the air, the tension began to shift. Each moment brimming with uncertainty bore the burgeoning potential of collaboration, transformation, all teetering on the edge of consensus. What would Miguel choose in this pivotal moment that could reshape both their legacies and the future ahead? Kaela could only wait and wonder, feeling the reverberations of history and change colliding where they stood, charged with the electric pulse of possibility. Would he take the bold step forward, or retreat into the comforting embrace of the past? The world shifted with every heartbeat, her heart pounding against the stillness. As they awaited Miguel's words, the question loomed. Would he embrace the tumultuous journey toward evolution, or resist the tide of change that beckoned them all? The air crackled with tension as silence enveloped the room, leaving Kaela in a state of anxious anticipation. The weight of the moment bore heavily on her, each second dragging out as she searched Miguel's face for any hint of his decision. Would he dare to defy the rigid structures imposed by Valerio, the tradition that loomed like a shadow over their hopes? Finally, Miguel leaned forward, his voice breaking through the silence with a blend of resolve and fear. "I choose to explore this path." The words ignited a surge of energy within Kaela. She felt as though the ground beneath her was shifting, allowing new roots to take hold. Valerio's expression morphed from defiance to disbelief. "You would risk everything for a gamble on something untested?" His tone was accusatory, but within his piercing gaze, Kaela observed the first flicker of vulnerability. "Yes," Miguel affirmed with unexpected clarity. "This isn't just an experiment, it's a necessary evolution. We can preserve our legacy, but we must also adapt to protect it." Kaela's heart swelled at Miguel's words. His journey mirrored her own, a reflection of the internal battle she had faced within herself. Although anchored in the past, he was willing to let the winds of change sweep him forward. As Valerio absorbed their declarations, Kaela seized the opportunity to fortify their position. "We must take proactive steps, Valerio. The health of our land is intertwined with the health of our community. These innovations aren't a dismissal of your wisdom, they're an evolution of it. She felt a surge of confidence as she spoke, compelling evidence strengthening her arguments, illuminating the gaps where tradition could merge with progress. Valerio's jaw clenched, but Kaela could see the cracks in his fortitude beginning to appear. You speak as if experience is counted in the chaos of new ideas. Are you prepared for the potential fallout? Her breath caught for a moment, a realization dawning upon her. This was more than just proving their point. It was about navigating their way through uncertainty and embracing the unknown. Honestly, no. But neither are we prepared to fail by clinging to things that hurt us. As she spoke, Kaela felt a shift occurring within herself. The weight of expectation began to dissolve, replaced by a fierce determination to advocate for what she believed was right, even when it was uncomfortable. Her internal dialogue transformed into a mantra, bolstering her spirit. Conviction over comfort, responsibility over resignation. Miguel's eyes sparkled with newfound conviction. We've turned a blind eye for too long, Uncle. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. The time for change is now. Tread cautiously, Miguel. Valerio's warning was firm, but the storm of resistance within him began to calm. This is not an easy road, and many will not follow. Kaela understood all too well the gravity of Valerio's caution. She too carried her own fears and doubts, but recognized they could not be shackled to the past. No one said it would be. We cannot expect acceptance overnight. But if we lead with intent and clarity, we might inspire others to join us. The conversation hung in the air like a tenuous thread, slowly weaving pathways of potential futures, while doubt roasted upon the flames of possibility. Kaela felt the ground shift again in a way that felt transformative. A realization bubbled up that perhaps this moment marked a defining pivot in her own development. It wasn't merely about convincing Valerio or even forging a new path for farming practices. This was about asserting her voice, stepping fully into her role as an advocate for change. Yet as conviction coursed through her blood, there remained an unanswered question that teased at the edges of her awareness. Would the community embrace this change, or would Miguel and herself stand alone against the tides of tradition? With that doubt still lingering in her mind, she sensed an urgency tugging at her. This evolution would not happen on its own. It required a calling to arms, a message that would resonate with both old and new, forging bridges where there had only been divides. As they braced themselves, navigating the uncertain waters before them, Kaela felt the adrenaline of possibility crackling all around. They were standing on the precipice of transformation, but how would they chart their course through the vast unknown? The time had come to confront not only their external hurdles, but also the internal fears that lay ensconced within their hearts. Her heart raced as she realized this journey was just beginning, and the next step would test them all in ways they could scarcely imagine. Kaela walked out of the stark meeting room, the weight of Valerio's gaze still pressing down upon her. The muted colors of the walls felt constraining, a reflection of the traditions that had held the family in a rigid chokehold. She glanced at Miguel, whose determination shone in his eyes, and felt momentarily buoyed by their shared vision. But as they stepped outside into the sunlight, a flood of uncertainty washed over her. The fresh air, while invigorating, was laced with the familiar scent of concern, the reality that all of this could unravel, that the very steps they intended to take might prove too big to manage. Kaela inhaled deeply, her mind turning over the myriad influences at play. Valerio wasn't just a relative, he was a pillar of their community. His opposition could rally others, sending ripples of doubt cascading through their plans. "Are you sure about this?" she asked Miguel, her voice barely a whisper, betraying the tempest within. "I am," he replied, his words steady. "But we have to prepare for resistance. If we confront Valerio's authority, we should be ready to face the community's backlash as well." Kaela nodded slowly, realizing that they were standing at the crossroads of belief and action. Encouraged by Miguel's resolve, she contemplated how to channel their passion productively. They would need to develop a strategy, sow the seeds of change not through conflict, but through dialogue. "Let's create a prototype," she suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. "We can show them the potential of our ideas through tangible results. If we prove what can be done, maybe they'll understand." Miguel's face brightened, the spark of innovation igniting a fervor in him. We could invite neighbors to see the results. Hands-on experiences are more persuasive than arguments. Kaela felt the pulse of her ambition growing stronger. No longer shying away from confrontation, she envisioned their community standing before an array of flourishing crops, vibrant and alive. The doubters could become allies once they witnessed the change firsthand. Yet as the plan crystallized, a different apprehension caught in the corners of her mind. Prototyping their ideas demanded trust, and trust was built over time, not merely generated by enthusiasm. Would they stake their reputations, not to mention their resources, on a dream? Miguel, what if things don't go as planned? What if we fail? That's the risk, he asserted, his gaze unwavering. But what if we succeed? What if this lays a foundation for a whole new way of life? We can't let fear control the direction we take. Kaela bit her lip, pushing back against the tide of self-doubt. If they did not step forward now, would they forever wonder what might have been? This challenge, while daunting, was an invitation to grow, both as individuals and as pioneers of change. As they walked back toward their home, plotting their initial steps and gathering materials for their prototype, an exhilarating sense of purpose enveloped Kaela. Each potential obstacle transformed into a stepping stone, her doubts receding beneath the swell of newfound confidence. However, in that charged moment, doubt still lingered like a shadow at the edge of her mind. She couldn't help but wonder whether they were truly prepared for the pushback that would inevitably come. The question loomed like an unshakable cloud. Would the community stand with them or against them when they unveiled their vision? With her heart racing, she reminded herself that they were not alone in this venture. Together with Miguel, they could enact a transformation that could challenge the status quo. But how would they navigate the unpredictable waters of public opinion? The urgency mounted, a call to arms in a battle not just for their ideas, but for the very future of the land they loved. What would it take to convert skepticism into belief? As dusk began to settle on the horizon, Kaela felt a profound shift all around her. It was time to forge ahead. But with what strategy would they rally the community? Their journey of evolution was merely in its infancy, but the moments ahead would reveal their true potential. Would they rise together, or would the voices of tradition drown them out? Kaela found herself back at the old farmhouse, the fading sunlight casting shadows that danced along the worn floorboards. Each step echoed in her mind, stirring an inner dialogue that pieced together her growing apprehension and determination. The prototype they envisioned was an undertaking unlike anything she had attempted before. It wasn't just about the crops. It was about their livelihoods, their identities, and how they would be seen by Valerio and the rest of the community. Gathering their supplies, Kaela couldn't ignore the knot in her stomach. What if they failed? What if the community turned against them, fueled by Valerio's disdain? She dismissed the thoughts as quickly as they came, feeling the heat of passion flicker inside her, igniting her resolve. She was more than just a farmer's daughter. She was on the cusp of becoming a catalyst, someone who could reshape her familial legacy. "Miguel, we need to make this prototype count," she stated, the tremor in her voice giving way to conviction. "We should focus not just on planting but on storytelling. We need them to see this as a new chapter, not a rebellion." Miguel nodded, reflecting on her shift in approach. "You're right, we have to speak from the heart. It's not just about the crops, it's about what they represent. We can invite people to watch the process, to feel the transformation." As they worked, the once distant goal began to materialize. It wasn't merely the physical labor that required effort, but the weaving together of a narrative that would resonate with their neighbors. Kaela envisioned the lush fields, the colors of fresh growth contrasted against the gray of tradition. They would need to craft a narrative that wrapped the tangible benefits around shared values, sustainable practices, and the dreams of a better tomorrow. In the midst of digging and planting, Kaela experienced a revelation, one that felt percussive within, like her heart drumroll. They were more than just updating agricultural practices, they were addressing a cultural shift. Evening meetings became brainstorming sessions as the weight of leadership clicked into place for her. The realization that she was not merely following, she was guiding was exhilarating yet daunting. One afternoon, as they prepared to unveil their prototype to the community, the weight of impending judgment both terrified and exhilarated her. She stood in front of the tilled earth they had amended and nurtured, watching as their efforts turned into reality. The community had shown up, curious and skeptical. Each face was a reflection of years of tradition, years of comfort in the familiar. Kaela's breath quickened as she confronted the crowd, her voice standing firm against her fluttering heart. "This isn't just my dream," she declared. "It's ours. We have the ability to reinvigorate our lands and our lives. Together we can cultivate not only these fields, but our community's future." As she spoke, Kaela felt the energy shift. The expressions of doubt began to morph into intrigue. Miguel stepped up beside her, his unwavering faith radiating outward. Together, they could transform that initial apprehension into excitement. But just as hope sparked like fire in the cool evening air, Valerio's figure loomed on the periphery, a dark cloud of resistance. His presence was arresting, an embodiment of the unresolved tension. Kaela caught his cold stare and felt the flutter of doubts resurfacing, a nagging whisper reminding her of the pressure that could crush this moment. The turning point wasn't simply in their presentation, but in how they would respond to Valerio. Would they rally the support that ignited change, or would legacy and loyalty keep them shackled to fear? The chance to dismantle the past and build a new future hung in the balance, ready to tip at any moment. Kaela breathed deeply, feeling the weight of impending confrontation rest on her shoulders. Here lay not just the culmination of her labor, but a call to redefine everything she understood about the community they inhabited. Would her voice resonate against tradition, or would it be drowned out by the very shadows she sought to dispel? The moment of truth loomed as staggering uncertainty surged within her chest, building to an almost explosive tension. The real battle had just begun, and at its core lay the invasive question: was she ready to face Valerio? Kaela's heart raced as she felt every gaze fixated on her, especially Valerio's. A storm brewed in his eyes, one she had seen before in boardrooms and dusty fields alike, where the whispers of the past clashed with the boldness of innovation. Her voice trembled momentarily, but she caught herself, the weight of expectation pressing down yet fueling her inner fire. She focused on her vision, conjuring the vibrant images of thriving crops, not only for show, but as a means for sustenance and prosperity. "Together," she continued, her voice growing steadier, "we can turn the soil beneath our feet into a testament of resilience and adaptability. Change doesn't break our tradition, it reinvigorates it. Let's not fear the new. Instead, let's embrace it as an ally." As she finished, she searched the crowd's faces, looking for a flicker of understanding, a shared heartbeat pulsing in unison with her own. A whisper began to circulate. The crowd shifted, and Kaela took that as a signal to press forward. But Valerio stepped forward, a wall of antiquated beliefs and personal pride. "Kaela," he interrupted, his voice carrying the heavy weight of authority. "Change is not simply an act of will. It thrives on proven methods, tested years, and the experience of those who have come before us. You romanticize this process as if it's a fairy tale. It's dangerous to tamper with what has sustained us." Kaela felt the air grow thick with tension. It felt as if she could touch the unease hanging between them like smoke. But this was the moment of truth, the confrontation she had been dreading and yet anticipating. She had to confront Valerio's skepticism with clarity and passion, not aggression. "I respect the history and traditions, Valerio," Kaela replied, her tone firm yet respectful. "But our land, our lives, they are evolving. Ignoring that won't protect us. I'm not asking us to abandon our roots. I'm asking us to grow from them. We have an opportunity to merge our collective wisdom with new methods and ideas." This response seemed to resonate beyond mere words. She detected a ripple of agreement, albeit hesitant, from the crowd behind her. Murmurs filled the air like whispered prayers, some intrigued, others still cautious. Kaela's heart thudded heavily. Was this the moment she could galvanize them, or would Valerio's iron grip on their tradition prove too tough to loosen? Miguel leaned closer to her, his confident demeanor whispering solidarity. She could sense his belief fortifying her resolve, urging her to keep pressing against the wall of tradition that Valerio embodied. "Show him the prototype," Miguel urged softly, his eyes gleaming with the urgency of the moment. "Let the crops speak for themselves." With a considerable effort, Kaela pulled her thoughts back to the tangible result of their hard work, the prototype that they had spent countless days nurturing. "Would you be willing, Valerio, to come see the prototype?" she proposed, channeling a blend of confrontation and invitation. "Let it speak to you before you discount the potential." Valerio's eyes narrowed as he weighed her proposition. The crowd held its collective breath. After an agonizing moment, he finally replied, "Fine, I will see this prototype of yours. But mark my words, if it fails, you cannot claim it as a success born from our legacy." Kaela's pulse quickened. There it was, the challenge she needed. She knew the prototype was more than corn and beans. It was a reflection of her resolve and an assertion of her place within a tradition asking for transformation. As Valerio stepped back, the air seemed to shift, becoming charged with anticipation. This was the beginning of her true test, not just of the prototype, but of her ability to foster change within a rigid system bound by the past. With renewed determination, Kaela turned to the crowd, their expressions now a mixture of curiosity and cautious optimism. "We have much to prove together," she declared, a new fire igniting within her. "Let's show Valerio what we can achieve." And as they began to guide the crowd towards the fields, a budding sense of unity formed. If they could rise to this occasion, she was ready to lead them. But uncertainty still coiled around her thoughts. Was she truly prepared for the fallout should they fail to impress Valerio? With the weight of expectations on her shoulders, Kaela stood at the precipice of change, ready to dive into the depths of possibility, but well aware of the shadows lurking behind every decision. How could she ensure this process brought her not just respect, but the transformational legacy she had longed for? The next step awaited, and with it, the next layer of the challenge and revelation she would need to confront. With each step towards the fields, Kaela's heart pounded, a rhythmic reminder of her vulnerability cloaked in determination. The anticipation of unveiling the prototype ignited her resolve, yet anxiety gnawed at her resolve as the reality of Valerio's skepticism loomed over her. Could she truly merge the old with the new? Each individual seed symbolized not just a future crop, but an unyielding risk, an echo of her ambitions intertwined with the age-old ways of her ancestors. As they reached the plot, Kaela paused. The land before her was a breath of fresh air, transformed by the innovations they had painstakingly experimented with. It was not merely an agricultural endeavor. It was a vision bursting forth from the soil, an embodiment of her dreams and aspirations, blooming where doubt threatened to suffocate them. "Here it is," she announced, directing everyone's attention to the rows of crops, vibrant and lush. Each plant stood proudly, a testament to what they could achieve together. "This is what the future looks like," she urged, scanning the faces around her, seeking the affirmation she desperately desired. The tension of the past mingled with the bright potential of progress. As Kaela explained the prototype's techniques, integrating sustainable practices with traditional farming methods, she saw pockets of understanding spark in some of the older farmers' eyes. But the shadows of hesitation still lingered, as would-be supporters were eclipsed by their deeply rooted fears of change. How could she persuade them to embrace innovation without abandoning their heritage? Every decision carries weight, she contemplated internally. This moment wasn't simply about technology, it was about fostering an ethos of cooperative growth. Yet as she spoke passionately about the environmental and economic benefits, the creeping doubt held tight its grip on her stomach. Would this dream slip through her fingers if Valerio remained unmoved? Miguel stepped closer, offering reassurance as he shared anecdotes of their successful trials. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Kaela saw it was enough to light the fire of possibility within the crowd, slowly rekindling hope from the ashes of despair. They listened with cautious open hearts, drawn towards a vision that contradicted their long-held beliefs. But there was no escaping Valerio's presence. He emerged from the back, arms crossed, his very stance like a guardian of tradition. As he stepped into the sunlight and approached the prototype, Kaela's breath caught in her throat. Defiance marked his expression, but beneath that lay a flicker of curiosity. It was an uncharted territory, one where reason clashed with stubbornness. "Let's see if your work translates into promise, Kaela," he said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "What's the plan if this doesn't yield the results you anticipate?" Swallowing hard, Kaela realized this was not just a test of the prototype, but a reflection of her vision for the future against the archaic ideas she sought to challenge. "We will monitor, adapt, and continue to improve," she stated, steadier this time. "This is just one step in a much larger journey. We need to be open to learning, all of us." The surrounding crowd murmured, a semblance of discussion igniting among them. She watched as some began to nod, while others remained conflicted, caught in the tension between preservation and innovation. Yet Kaela felt a strange shift. The air crackled as if possibilities were sprouting in their minds like tiny seeds. Just then, as Miguel began explaining the data outcomes, Kaela's thoughts shifted restlessly, assessing what needed to be done if Valerio's opposition hardened. Could she craft a strategic narrative that transformed the perceived antagonism into collaboration? She wanted to draw out a dialogue that grabbed hold of tradition while gently ushering in change. "Valerio, perhaps you'd better start by defining success for you?" Kaela asked, attempting to pivot the discussion toward a constructive conversation. This was no longer merely about techniques, it was about shaping their collective purpose moving forward. But her question hung heavy in the air, challenging the foundations of the familiar. A risk that could either deepen her connection to the community or put her efforts at serious risk. Would their legacy withstand the scrutiny of practical applications? As Valerio prepared to respond, Kaela felt the ground shift beneath her. The moment held an electric tension, a crossroads that could define not just her journey, but the very nature of how they engaged with their heritage. Uncertainty loomed like dark clouds, the fragility of progress preyed upon by tradition. What would Valerio unveil in that crucial response, and would she be ready to nurture the seeds of change despite all resistance? The crowd waited with bated breath, the tension thickening as Valerio's sharp gaze locked onto Kaela. The moment felt monumental, the air pregnant with possibility. She reminded herself that this was not merely about agriculture, it was a confrontation of ideas, one that could fracture or strengthen the community's very fabric. Valerio inhaled deeply, his expression inscrutable. "Success," he began, his voice steady but low, "is measured by resilience, even in the face of adversity. For generations we have cultivated this land, and while you speak of innovation, I see potential chaos." Kaela's heart raced. How could she address his skepticism without losing the momentum they had built? Resilience can mean evolution, Valerio. If we cling too tightly to the past, we risk suffocating our future. We need to adapt to nurture our legacy, not bury it. The murmurs from the crowd intensified. A few elders shifted uneasily, while younger farmers exchanged glances filled with cautious curiosity. Valerio narrowed his eyes, unwilling to relent. "And what if this innovation goes wrong? The ramifications won't solely fall on your shoulders. They will ripple throughout the community and the land we hold sacred." Glimmers of doubt resurfaced in Kaela's mind, yet she clung fiercely to her vision. It wasn't just about proving herself. It was about demonstrating that collaboration was needed now more than ever. Drawing a deep breath, she pressed on. "We are not seeking to dismiss your wisdom, Valerio. Our goal is to honor it by investing in the future, together. Change doesn't have to negate our past, it can elevate it." Miguel stepped forward, his conviction enhancing her resolve. "Imagine what we could achieve. A new generation of harvest, growing healthier crops that yield not just food, but hope, resilience, and promise for the community we embody." Kaela felt an electric charge pass through her. The support from Miguel invigorated her spirit, and she could see how his words resonated with the crowd. But the journey was far from over. "What do you propose, young ones?" Valerio deflected, still clinging to his role as a bastion of tradition. "That's all merely words without substance." Kaela understood the challenge. They needed to provide concrete evidence of their vision. "We will initiate workshops, demonstrate these methods. We invite the community to participate in the process, to witness the evolution firsthand." She could feel the energy shift. A subtle transformation as members of the audience began to nod appreciatively. "Taking hands-on ownership will build our trust and create a shared legacy," Miguel added, his passion infectious. Valerio's gaze softened, if only slightly. "And you believe this gamble will resonate with the community? Trust isn't built in a day, it takes roots deeper than crops." Kaela seized this moment, understanding the ripe potential of the conversation unfolding. Then we give it time. Let's showcase this prototype and invite everyone, skeptics, supporters, all to observe. We'll learn together, grow together, or fail together. But I promise you, if it succeeds, it will be a testament to our combined efforts, our shared heritage. Murmurs swirled around her, questions emerging, doubts still lingering, yet tempered with intrigue. In this moment of revelation, Kaela recognized the definitive shift within herself. She was no longer just a vessel of her ancestors, but a powerful advocate for innovation intertwined with respect for tradition. Her voice was not merely heard, it bore the weight and potential of their common future. Valerio's eyes bore into hers. You challenge the status quo and make a compelling case, but you must fully embrace the consequences and visit the self-doubt lurking beneath your confidence. If you're willing to bear the weight of that risk, maybe, just maybe, you could earn our trust. The crowd seemed to lean in, a tide of curiosity beginning to wash over their previous skepticism. Kaela felt the swell of pride rise within her chest. This was a validation of her journey. They had reached an inflection point, a pivot that could define their direction going forward. As evening fell gently onto the landscape, painting the horizon in hues of gold and amber, a sense of solidarity surrounded them. Kaela turned to Miguel, a smile of shared triumph illuminating her face. This was a significant step, she whispered, a mix of nerves and excitement bubbling within her. We can do this, Miguel. They were not just reimagining agricultural practices, they were laying the groundwork for an alliance between tradition and change. Kaela felt imbued with a solid sense of confidence in her beliefs and her capacity to lead their community, rooted in the legacy they all cherished. Together, they moved forward into the future with conviction, a tough but thrilling path unfurling before them. They had begun a metamorphosis, a recalibration of their identities not just as farmers, but as catalysts for meaningful progress. The cycle of seasons waited for no one, but Kaela understood she was ready. She and the community would sow more than seeds. They would nurture a vision capable of stretching their traditions into possibilities they had yet to grasp. Embracing the profound potential ahead, she felt at once their history and their hope, corralled into one resilient entity. Kaela stepped into her purpose, finally seeing clearly that through the mess of doubt and resistance, she had conquered her fears, embracing the essence of what it meant to evolve while honoring her roots. The dawn of an era of mutual growth awaited, but there was no turning back now, only a resolute forward push. As the sun dipped into the horizon, illuminating all that lay ahead, she knew it was time to act, time to bring her community into the bright new future that awaited them. She wasn't merely leading them forward, she was guiding them to thrive, succeed, and flourish together. The time was now. Kaela had emerged triumphant, demonstrating true transformation, not only in the fields before her, but within her spirit itself. In that powerful realization, she understood the impact of resilience. They would face the challenges ahead, together, strong in their resolve and unified in purpose. This was her achievement. Her moment to inspire and embrace a collective journey towards an inevitable future rooted deeply in both tradition and innovation, laying the foundation anew. The path she envisioned would not just create a legacy, it would redefine what it meant to carry forward the weight of the past with the promise of the future. You need to subscribe now to ensure you do not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that shimmer with transformation and resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts and truly helps spread the word of overcoming adversity. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support this channel. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.